Hello, everyone. In this podcast, we will be discussing sensitive topics such as sexual assault. It's important to take care of yourself while listening. Some suggestions are listening while you're in a healthy headspace or knowing who you can reach out to if you become upset. Our 24/7 helpline for crisis calls based out of Central Florida is 407-500-HEAL. By contacting the national hotline at 1-800-656-4673, you can get support and learn about your local resources. There's always someone ready to help. Welcome to the Victim Service Center podcast. Here we sit down with professionals that serve survivors and victims of trauma, or those who have experienced violence, and have conversations about social issues. This week, we are talking about social work. My name is Emilie Mitchell. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Education Coordinator at the Victim Service Center of Central Florida. With me today, I have Marlene Isma. Marlene uses she, her pronouns and is an advocate intern at the VSC. She graduated with a bachelor's in social work in 2019 and is now pursuing her master's in social work. She has a passion for addressing homelessness, helping immigrants, and other community work. She loves fashion and creative directing and hopes to combine her passions with her creative side in the future. So Marlene, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have returning Danielle Uhran. Danielle uses she, her pronouns and is one of our social work interns at the VSC, currently pursuing her master's in social work from the Florida State University with a certificate in Gerontology. Danielle is passionate about helping victims of sexual assault, violent crime, and traumatic circumstances move towards a path of healing. So Danielle, thanks for coming back onto the podcast.
I'm so excited.
I'm really excited to have this conversation with you both as well, because March is actually National Social Work Month, which is a time to celebrate this profession and the people who work in it. This year's theme is actually centered around social workers being essential for community well-being. Many of our victim advocates at the VSC completed their master's degrees in social work. And today we have two amazing social work interns here to chat about why they chose to pursue a degree in social work, clear up any misheld beliefs about the profession and the field, and explore why social workers are essential to our community. So with that, Danielle and Marlene, and either one of you can start off. You are both currently pursuing, as we mentioned, your master's in social work or MSW. So to start off, could you both briefly describe what social work is and why you chose to pursue a degree in social work?
Yeah, so what I honestly, I've already been like 3 years into this program, and it never kind of dawned on me like, okay, what's the real definition? So I'm just here. I'm really just going with the flow of the program, but didn't realize that there is a definition to the social work practice. And so what I've done so far, what I've witnessed, I kind of want to gather it up to like, it's really the practice that promotes social change and like social betterment as well. And so through that, it's kind of like guided by the hierarchy needs by Maslow. I think it is, or Darwin, one of them.
Yeah, I think it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're right.
Yes. And through that, they kind of just address like the basic needs, the psychological needs, and the self fulfillment needs. And so that's with social worker or social work in general. That's what it deals with, kind of like helping individuals with issues, either families or groups or anything of that nature.
Yeah, it seems to be kind of like a holistic look at people and their needs and the resources that they need in order to kind of have these fulfilling lives, right? The
Yeah.
self-actualization that
Hmm.
Maslow talks about. And why did you pursue it then, Marlene, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I feel like with everyone has like a story. But I feel like with me, every day I feel like I'm cracking a code to societal issues, societal pressure, or just things in general. I don't have all the answers, I can tell you that much. I don't, but I feel like I'm learning how to deal with things in a more effective way. And so to be able to kind of help someone else um, learn those skills or teach them is what is fulfilling to me. And so a lot of the times I have friends who come to me with their issues, and sometimes I'm just listening. Sometimes I'm kind of like giving advice, but it really is a fulfilling thing to see them come out of the situation they're in just by the advice or the tools that I gave them or what I've learned. So that's really why I pursue this social work degree.
That's amazing. It's incredible to be able to be that support system for someone and see kind of them thrive and move forward in healing. That's awesome. Danielle, I don't know if you had a specific definition and a story that Marlene kind of mentioned.
Yes, I do. So, a brief definition of social work is that it's an academic discipline, practice, profession that concerns itself with individuals, families, groups, community, and society as a whole in an effort to meet basic needs and enhance social functioning, self-determination, collective responsibility, and overall being. Social functioning is defined as the ability of an individual to perform their social roles within their own self, their immediate social environment, and the society at large. So, social work applies to social sciences such as sociology, psychology, political science, public health, community development, law, and economics to engage with client systems and conduct assessments and develop interventions to solve problems, personal problems, and bring about social change. Social work practice is divided into micro social work, which involves working directly with individuals or small groups, and macro social work, which involves working with communities and fostering change on a larger scale through social policy. Why I personally chose social work. I chose social work because I felt that it was a calling from God. I spent a lot of time in prayer and felt that God told me to go for social work, and it's been a rewarding journey. It has always been a dream of mine to have the opportunity to be part of a team dedicated to enhancing lives of those in need and continually enhancing the quality and scope of services provided. Um, I'm a spiritual person and God is everything to me. And I chose social work because I want God to use me to promote healing, change, and love to the world and the clients I serve. I,
Mm.
I believe in showing empathy, compassion, and the love of God to others by encouraging them to never give up despite the challenges they face. I hope to be a person that gives hope to those dealing with challenges and going through hard times, which is why I want to do social work.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that, both of you, kind of your journeys as to why you chose social work as a profession and kind of highlighting the diversity that of this profession where you can work with individuals and enact change. And you can also work at the macro level in
Mm.
policy changes and things like that from like that top down change as well.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And, you know, speaking of kind of different degrees and things like that, were you choosing between pursuing an MSW and something else? And what made you ultimately decide on social work?
I would say for me, with the bachelor's level, I kind of was like kind of turned off from social work. So I made it a plan to, after I graduate, to kind of go ahead and seek something else or pursue something else. I was going to do urban regional development, right? Yeah, it sounds really nice, sophisticated. Yeah, but with that, I think I was just trying to find something else other than social work. But I loved what Danielle said about how her relationship with God kind of like led her to pursue social work. And that was the same thing with me. I think I was just fighting it. And I think with a lot of times I let the stigma get to me. So what I had to do was kind of like be real with myself, and then kind of like seeing how the social work profession has changed me thus far. And so with that, I had to kind of like remind myself why I got into it in the first place.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And if you don't mind me asking, it sounds like there was stigmas. Is there any other reason why social work kind of turned you off that you would like to share when you were pursuing it as a bachelor's?
It was just, I felt like I was already tired of it. Like, I felt burnt out in a way, and I was not even working in the field just yet. But something about it just turned me off, and I really believed what everybody else was saying about it, and that kind of steered me like, okay, maybe I need to find something else to do, because clearly everyone else thinks this is like the profession that doesn't, get too much attention and stuff like that. So I've always, every time someone would ask me, okay, why are you, what are you going to school for? And I would say social work, and they would say, okay, why? Like, as if like you can do something else. So it was really solely because of that stigma, and I kind of like let everybody else get into my head. But I'm back. I'm here to stay. So
was there like a turning point, like an event or anything where you're like, you know what, I need to go back into social work?
I would say I have these two other group of friends that are also in the social work field. And every day I kind of was stressed to them, like, I'm leaving this profession. I'm going to go do something else. But then kind of like they kind of helped me and kind of remind me on why it was important for me to kind of like finish and see this through. And I think the jobs that I've worked so far, really, it's a fulfilling job. It really is. There were times where I would go home tired, but I honestly felt like I've did a good deed in the world by leaving work. So that's what had me going back and realizing that I'm not done yet.
I love that. Thank you so much, Marlene. I appreciate you being very open and candid with us. Danielle, I don't know if you wanted to piggyback off of anything of, if you were choosing between two different degrees, and then what ultimately made you decide on social work.
So I was pursuing nursing, and I found I was unhappy. And so I prayed about it. And after I had prayed about it, I actually saw a YouTube video that had my name titled, and it said Danielle Social Worker. And I thought, wow, well, maybe this is a sign. And the weird thing is that I wasn't even looking up videos on social work, and that had just popped up right after I had prayed about it. So I was like, okay, maybe God's giving me a sign. So I clicked on it and watched it, and it like really sparked my interest. And I said, wow, this is a really amazing job, and then I started watching more videos and about social work and started to read about it. And then I prayed about it, and I felt like God was telling me, you need to change your major. And so the next day I actually went in and changed my major.
Wow.
And, from nursing to social work. And I chose it not only because I felt like it was, a calling. But I also chose it because I want to show empathy and compassion to people and, give people hope. I believe there's always hope, even times in despair. And I've witnessed people experiencing darkness that seems inescapable. And to be that person, to help that person find hope, it's a very rewarding experience. And, I just want to be that person that helps that person find hope and helps show them to believe that that there's support and that there's people out there that care and want to make a difference in their life. And so, any way I can do that, I just want to be able to help make people's lives better.
I love that. Thank you so much as well, Danielle, for being candid with us and sharing your story about why you decided to pursue social work. I can hear the passion a lot from both of you. And I think that is probably a reason why a lot of people do go into this field. That being said, we talked a little bit about kind of choosing between different professions. And we hinted that social work is a little different. So what does make social work different from other fields, for example, like psychology? Because I feel like sometimes these are kind of compared a little bit.
So there are many similarities between psychology and social work, but there's also distinct differences, such as psychologists and social workers have different areas of expertise, licensing requirements, and opportunities. And the salaries are relatively different. Psychologists are trained to diagnose and address clients' mental concerns. They work with clients to manage their needs through psychotherapy and the development of treatment plans. As part of those treatment plans, psychologists in some states can prescribe medication to clients. However, in contrast, social workers work with clients to address factors that are often more external, such as addiction, financial problems, and family issues. Social workers and government agencies can help foster children find homes and check on the welfare of children who might be abused or neglected. Social workers in hospitals may help clients deal with terminal illness or help families cope with a dying relative. Unlike some psychologists, social workers are not allowed to prescribe medication. And some of the licensing differences as well should be noted. Licensing requirements may vary between psychologists and social workers, such as 3,000 hours of clinical work before sitting for the national recognized exam for the Association of Social Work Boards must be completed after passing. Social workers are licensed and earn their title of licensing to become a clinical social worker. However, in comparison, psychologists must possess a doctorate degree to obtain licensure, and doctoral students can either obtain a doctorate of psychology or a doctor of philosophy, and can choose to specialize in a concentration. And the American Board of Professional Psychologists offers 15 different specializations, including behavioral and cognitive, clinical, child and adolescent, counseling, couple and family, forensic, organizational and business, and police and public safety, as well as working in schools. There is a difference in salaries as well. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the annual median salary for a social worker is $50,470, and the field is expected to grow 13% through 2029 in the U.S. And in comparison, the annual median salary for psychologists is $80,370, and the field is expected to grow by 3% through 2029.
Thank you. That was really a lot of great information. That's interesting that social work is seen to be increasing as a profession, but the salary is like a little different. And it could be that degree difference that you were mentioning. That makes a lot of sense. However, I find it really interesting that the growth is happening more on the social work front.
Crazy, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
wild. But with that, you kind of mentioned that there's different professions within social work that people can take advantage of their MSW with, I should say. It opens a lot of doors. So with that, what kind of professions can you pursue with an MSW?
I know there's like a lot, but just to name some off the top of my head is probably like school psychologist, a therapist too. But that I'm just naming three. So you can also practice law with the social work degree as well. So that's how like wide the option is for social work, but I'm pretty sure there is a whole bunch of other ones. That was just the ones that was off the top of my head. I don't know, Danielle, if you have any.
Some others like substance abuse counseling, healthcare social work, school counseling, medical social work, community program administration, social work teaching, child welfare caseworker, clinical mental health social worker, children at risk social work, clinical therapeutic services, criminal justice and correction services, community development, political services, business social work, corporate social work, developmental disability social work, adult social care, gerontology social work, public welfare social work, end of life social work, social service advising, adolescent specialists, adoption specialists, cardiovascular social work, community support specialists, employee assistance, family advocacy representative, family preservation services, foster care therapy, guidance counseling, HIV, mental health coordinator, pediatric social work. The list like literally goes on and on. Apparently a daycare provider. I didn't know about that. That was new for me. Psychiatric social work, hospice, prison, military, vocational rehab, homeless, domestic violence, suicide prevention.
Wow.
Native American social work, veterans, addiction, family court social work, group counselor. Yeah, it literally goes on and on. Like there's so many things.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like wherever your passions kind of take you, whatever issue that you feel passionate about, you can perhaps pursue a profession within that field by using your MSW. And going back to kind of the difference between social work and other fields, it really sounds like it's like we mentioned in the beginning, this holistic idea of kind of looking at the systems and how that affects the individual and it affects groups, and that includes the social structure, the social economic status, people's background as far as race, ethnicity, all those things kind of playing together, and then acknowledging those things and then finding the best way to help those people in a variety of different ways, obviously, because we see it. So that's amazing. And I know that a lot of times, highlighting all the different professions that you can pursue with an MSW, you're going to be working with psychologists. You're going to be working with a lot of different people within other fields too. So there's a lot of collaboration that makes sense. With that being said, what do you personally hope to do with your MSW?
I kind of appreciate the fact that I'm being placed in internships or getting an opportunity to kind of like work in different places, because I've yet to kind of like figure out what I wanted to do, but I know it's something that I want to pursue in the community like aspect. Like I really am not sure, but the whole reason why I kind of was considering urban regional development is because with that degree, you can kind of like help make certain decisions what goes into the community. And so helping like people find resources and things that they need is what kind of like gives me the fuel that's in the social work profession. So I'm not really sure, but here's what I kind of like envision, right? I feel like I want to pursue my creative side as well as kind of like make sure that like the kids of GOV or certain areas of receive arts and craft and things like that. Or if I do come out with like a clothing line, like partial proceeds will kind of go to certain places in schools in Orlando or Miami, because that's where I'm from. But but I don't know. I really don't know. But I feel like that's what I kind of want to do as far as like just helping the community grow in that aspect.
Yeah. And, we know that we can see that getting an MSW, it's a very versatile degree. So who says you can't absolutely do that? Danielle, what do you hope to specifically do with your degree?
So like I said, I'm a very spiritual person. So whatever door God opens for me and I have the opportunity to help people is the type of job I want to work at. I'm open-minded, and I hope that when I get my MSW, I want to be able to help other moms that are going to school, and I'd like to be a college mentor to mothers that are in college, because I know that it can be a challenge going to school while raising children. And I've been lucky enough and blessed enough to have friends that have also gotten their master's degrees while being mothers. And so they've been able to encourage me and to give me tips about how to balance both. So I'm hoping that, I can be an inspiration to other moms out there and to encourage moms.
Very cool. Awesome. I love that. And I love that you're able to kind of focus on what issues are very important to you specifically, and then figure out a way, how can I be that person? This isn't a question that we talked about before, but I do wonder, did either of you ever work with a social worker at any point in your life? And did they help you in any way, or have you ever run into like a social worker in that sense?
3 of my family members are social workers.
Oh,
And they were part of the reasons why I kind of went back as well, because they're really doing really well in their field. One of a cousin of mine, he owns his own group home, and so he also started a foundation for kids who have autism, and so he's doing really well and is really somebody that's like really planted in the community. And another cousin of mine is like, she's a social worker in the VA. So yeah, so they're really involved in the community. And so when I sat down to speak with them about what my reservations were, they kind of just said, go for it. And remember, because a lot of times with this profession, you will have burnout days. You will have days where it's like, okay, man, I don't want to do this anymore. But you kind of have to put in remembrance what you initially signed up for and why did you want to do this in the first place.
yeah, absolutely. And going back to specifically those stigmas that you highlighted before, Marlene, I'd like to talk and dive a little deeper into that. So what are those common held misconceptions or held beliefs about social work that you'd like to address?
So one thing that the fact that you bring up social work and someone look at you like, okay, so you're taking away people's kids. Well, no. Here's the thing: you do take away people's kids, but it's not the fact that we're taking them away for fun. We're taking them away out of a serious situation that they're in, like a situation that's really detrimental for them, and kind of like putting them in a safe environment. And that's not all that we do. Danielle just went over a list of things that social workers can do, and the only thing that pops up to people's mind when the word social work comes up is, okay, you guys are the police who take away kids.
Yeah, I've heard that one a lot too. Danielle, is there something you wanted to piggyback off of?
I think that media, unfortunately, can sometimes have a negative effect on how they portray social workers, because like just recently my son was watching a cartoon and the whole family screamed and they were like, oh no, it's the social workers. They're gonna they're gonna take us away. We need to hide. And it's really sad, that even at that young of an age, that they're painting this negative image when that's not what social workers do at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually helping. They're here to help you. Don't run away. I also know that we kind of addressed it a little bit, but is there this stigma that a person cannot do therapy as a social worker?
Yes. But in the United States, there's many different types of mental health professions that provide therapy, including clinical social workers who are licensed. And it should be noted that, that social workers can diagnose and treat mental illness and can provide psychotherapy, and many social workers work as therapists.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what's a lot, like I mentioned before, a lot of our victim advocates / crisis counselors are people who have gotten their MSW and then they are pursuing their licensure. So you can actually get like you were mentioning, you get become a licensed clinical social worker or have your LCSW. And with that, and it's different in every state from what I understand, but with that, you can do counseling. I also I'm not sure if you've run into this common held misconception. Maybe it's different now, but I've also heard that, social work is not as important of a profession as others, like psychology, for example. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I know, yeah, a lot of people feel like social work is just like a job, like not a profession, but a job. And I think the reason why people feel like that is because of kind of what you said earlier about like there's a profession or there's a kind of like a target or a interest in whatever you feel like it. So if you want to work with kids, you can go ahead and work with kids and call yourself a social worker. So it's a lot of aspects. So a lot of people just thinks it's like, okay, you guys are just doing all different type of jobs, or that really isn't, subjected to one degree or one profession in a way. I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know.
I think I know what you mean, where because of the lack of specialization, maybe
yes,
because it's so general and applicable, maybe some people may think it's not as, held in high regard, I suppose, would be how I would put it. I don't know if you had any thoughts on it, Danielle.
So I think that social work is different from other professions because we focus both on the person and their environment, and we deal with external factors that impact a person's situation and outlook. But I think that like social work is vital because we create opportunities and for assessment and intervention to help clients and communities cope effectively with their reality and change that reality when necessary. And social workers help clients deal not only with how they feel about a situation, but also with what they can do about it. And so, I mean, just in the US, there are more than 60,000 professional social workers in the United States, and we all either have a BSW, MSW, or a PhD. Um, but there's so many different things that you can do with social work or a social work degree, and it doesn't just fit into one box. I have a close friend that's doing corporate social work with her master's degree, and she works in HR. So there's a lot of different ways you can apply the degree that, so I mean, it's a great opportunity for people that want to make a change, that want to help people, and it provides a variety of different options.
Very cool. Thank you so much. I love that, Danielle. Is there anything before we kind of move forward in this conversation? Is there anything you'd like to bring up that others may not know in regards to social work as a profession? I know we've been talking a lot, but I just wanted to ask one more time.
I think most people don't know about like corporate social work, and that many people who work in social work or have a social work degree work in HR and other areas of business, or run their own nonprofits. So you can utilize it in many different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That was something I didn't know. I feel like there's always like a new thing with social work that it's like, oh, I didn't know that. And so as we talk about you pursuing your MSW, so what does that process of getting a master's in social work look like?
So with that process, it can go either two ways, where you can spend 2 years, or you can do the advanced standing program. So for me, I'm doing the advanced standing program, and that consists of only 1 year. But it is the fast track, and when I tell you it's fast and compacted. It's kind of it's kind of like it's intense, but it's once you blink your eyes, you're there at the finish line. But I believe it's like 600 internship hours that you would need, as well as taking like 3 classes or two classes every semester. So it's combined in 4 semesters. 3 semesters you would have to take internship, and then I think that's it. I think that's it. Anything else I left out, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a mixture of like the practical experience with the educational standpoint of just like the typical academic. And yeah, Danielle, you have something?
Well, I'd like people to know that they definitely have options, and that every program looks very different. I spent a lot of time doing research because I have 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 6-month-old. So I needed something that was going to allow more flexibility to be able to raise children while going to school. And so I actually have a friend who is a lead case manager who has 3 kids and got her MSW with 3 children. And she actually was the one who told me about Florida State's program online. And it's a very good option for people who are working or have children and they need that flexibility, but they're wanting to go back to school. And I know it looks different for every program, but at Florida State University, their online program, they have a part-time track, which is 2 years to complete, for the advanced standing program. And it's roughly 6 semesters, unless you want to spread it out and have it take longer. Then it would take 7 semesters. So it's good to know that you have options. There's a lot of different tracks, but I would suggest to someone who's wanting to get their MSW is to really spend time doing research and the different programs and find what best fits what you're looking for. If you're wanting to get your degree, done fast, then maybe finding a program where you can get it in a year is your best option, or if you have children and you realize that, you need to have flexibility and, more time in your schedule to be able to raise children while going to school, then I would suggest finding a part-time track program, but knowing that you have different options for what best fits your life.
I love that. I think that that's such an important message to highlight, that you do have these different options if this is the drive, the degree that you're looking for. I wanted to also ask, how has your journey pursuing your MSW brought growth in your life? I know, Marlene, you mentioned you hinted at kind of this growth that you went through. I didn't know if you had any comments on it. And of course, Danielle, you can jump in too.
With the growth that I experienced, just with a lot of self-reflection and self-actualization that I had to do throughout this whole journey. As I'm learning on how to deal with others, then you start to realize, okay, well, I might have this problem too. Like, and then you kind of want to, not in a way, you just want to see if you can be a better person in order to kind of help the next person. So that was kind of my journey on through this social work program. And I realized that I've grown when I went back home to Miami, and a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about, a lot of people weren't like really interested in. And so I wanted to kind of like talk about like self-care, just making sure that your mind is right, seeking therapy and things like that. So I noticed that I was changing when the others were around me were kind of like looking like, okay, I don't want to talk about that. So yeah, it's a growth process. And with that, like you will grow with the social work program. And that's why I feel like that was very helpful for me.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Did you have a similar kind of experience, Danielle, when it comes to this growth as you get your MSW?
Yeah, to piggyback off of what Marlene said, I think it gives you the opportunity to really grow and self-reflect, and to be able to enhance your skills, like personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like for me, like I've spent many nights typing papers till like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. And at times I've wondered, like, how am I going to get through this? But it's taught me that with God, all things are possible. And it's taught me about areas I need to improve on, as well as how to better serve vulnerable people. And pursuing an MSW has really made me humble, because it's allowed me to recognize areas for growth and improvement, personally and professionally.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And, going off of that, I know that part of your MSW journey involves those internship hours that you were mentioning, Marlene. So what made you decide to intern with the Victim Service Center of Central Florida?
So I attend UCF, University of Central Florida, and they've chosen the internship for me. When I didn't know what I was getting into. When I heard what this job entails, I was kind of like, oh man, what where do they place me? But honestly, since the day that I've kind of like started here, I've found it interesting, and I love every day that I'm here. So I think with this profession, or not this profession, but like working here and interning here just brought a whole new look on helping someone like with sexual assault. Like I didn't, like the first time I've sat in the case, I was kind of taken aback, but like how much things that they disclosed that happened to them. Like a client just, it was like really serious. And in that moment, I didn't know what to do. But as what I really like is the fact that as I'm going on and being here, the internship has taught me tools on how to deal with people who have been victims of sexual assault. And I'm loving every minute of it.
Thank you for sharing that, Marlene. Yeah, I think that there's always, working kind of in this field, at least working specifically with survivors of trauma, I think every day we're kind of learning new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you're kind of getting that value as well out of the internship. Danielle, did you specifically choose to intern at the VSC? And if you did, why did you decide to?
I was presented with several different options from the Florida State University of places I could intern at, but I told my liaison that the Victim Service Center was my number one choice, and I really wanted to intern at the Victim Service Center because I'm passionate about serving victims of sexual assault, violent crime, traumatic circumstances, and I think that what sparked that interest for me was I am a survivor of sexual assault in the workplace. And when I told people what had happened at the place I had worked, no one believed me. And I was actually told that I did not have a voice. And since I went through the experience of being sexual assaulted several times in the workplace and no one doing anything, not having a voice, it sparked my passion of wanting to help advocate for sexual assault victims that may have or are dealing with no one believing them or feeling that they do not have a voice. I want victims to know that they are not alone, that they are supported and believed in, and that they have a voice, that there are people who care and want to help.
Thank you, Danielle, and thank you for sharing and being vulnerable with us. I'm so sorry that happened to you and that worse, no one believed. We talk a lot about that on the podcast and in a lot of my trainings too, that's one of the reasons why survivors don't come forward. It's because they're afraid that one, they may not be believed, and two, they might be blamed for what happened, which, as you know, at the VSC, we have this start by believing approach where what we do is we just say, I believe you. And that's the end of that, right? So I think that's really commendable that that's what you would like to do and help with survivors. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to, kind of highlight as far as what it's like to intern at the VSC and what you hope to gain from the experience specifically?
Well, the internship at the Victim Service Center is amazing. They provide very thorough training on various topics and provide beneficial feedback that has really helped me grow personally and professionally. I hope to learn more about working with victims so that I can become a better social worker. And I just want to say that I really appreciate Ms. Joellen and Ms. Rhonda because they really care about victims, their employees, and the interns, and they really go out of their way to explain things and provide beneficial feedback. And it's just a great place to intern because it gives you the learning opportunity to really grow.
Thank you, Danielle. And for everyone listening, Joellen's actually been on several podcasts, and she's the director for the direct care services. And then Rhonda is actually the lead advocate. So she is working as the supervisor for all of the victim advocates who are the ones who are answering our 24-hour helpline and helping victims.
It's just to kind of piggyback on what Danielle said, like that, it really is and has been helpful with Joellen and Rhonda, just because of like the things that I didn't think I would do kind of like co-facilitate a group and things like that. I didn't see myself doing that. So they're really getting me out of my shell and kind of like speaking to individuals about this like sensitive topic, because I think I pride myself on not being so intrusive in people's like kind of business and things like that. So, but I've learned how to be intrusive in a more helpful way. So this is a good experience. It really is.
That's wonderful to hear. Yeah, kind of being that facilitator and giving those people the space to share their stories and talk more about this really important topic too.
Mm-hmm.
I think normalizing these conversations about things like violence and sexual violence is really how we move forward and help prevent it too.
Mm-hmm.
As an educator, that's really what I strive to do. With that being said, we talked a little bit about some possible barriers people can face when deciding to get into the field of social work. Were there any other things that you wanted to highlight as far as a barrier as to why people might not get into it? I know that we talked about your personal ones, Marlene, but any other ones that you want to bring up?
Probably like the paid, the aspect of people, of the pay rate. I don't know. We're still working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a whole, as a social work body, the people that are already in it we already know that we don't really do this for the pay, but there are other professions as far as within the social work field that pays well too. So it's not something that that you can look down on, but I don't know. I just feel like you won't get the fulfillment from any other profession than social work. So
yeah, I totally see what you mean. Danielle, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes. So some barriers can be like managing stress or the emotional toll it can have at times. But I'd like to say that this is where self-care and healthy boundaries are very important. So if you're wanting to do social work, self-care, self-care, it's really so important, and having and creating healthy boundaries. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't fully help someone else.
Absolutely. Yes. I talk a lot about that in my trainings, have how you can't pour from an empty cup. And that actually leads to my other question, Danielle, which is, I think a lot of the reasons why people may be worried about getting a degree in something like social work is experiencing that vicarious trauma or the emotional burnout. So you talked about self-care, Danielle, but do you, Marlene, or you, Danielle, have any other advice on this specifically?
I think not taking on, as far as with the emotional burnout, I feel like you just have to set boundaries with yourself and the profession. So a lot of times this profession would want you to go above and beyond. But if you can't go anymore, it is okay to tap out. It is okay to tap out. And if you feel like you're about to tap out or reach that breaking point, it's okay to just stop. It's okay to kind of like step back and regroup and think about what's best for you, so that you can, still be able to help that person when you do get recharged up, or, just practicing that self-care and knowing what you're going to do after you leave work, after you close out a case, or just, things to figure out what could release your mind and release yourself of that burden. Because a lot of times you will go home with it. But it's very important to have that support system and that system where you can be able to talk to someone and do activities that you love, so that it won't weigh you down. because the burdens might come. It's
Yeah.
just, it cannot weigh you down.
Yeah, I love what you said. Kind of, it's almost like you have a self-care plan, right? And it being kind of a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach. Because
Exactly.
burnout, you're right. I think burnout is kind of in almost every field. People can experience this thing like burnout. But I do know that if you are working in the social work field and perhaps in a mental health field, those kinds of fields, it could be a little different, especially if you're working with people like trauma. It can, if you're feeling, the vicarious trauma, you're being affected by working with individuals who have gone through trauma, right? And so because of that, the burnout could be looking a little different. And with that, having this self-care as a proactive approach, I think is so important. And then validating that that's okay, that you need it, and recognizing signs. Yeah, absolutely. And I know, and kind of a few other questions here before we sign off. I know that we talked about if someone was interested in pursuing a degree in social work, we shared some advice. Is there any other advice on, for example, advice on picking an internship that you want to go over, or advice while working the internship, anything like that?
So advice while working the internship that I would have to give is be open to feedback and look at it as a learning opportunity for you to grow, and you may not be where you want to be professionally or personally, but the internship allows you the opportunity to self-reflect and to recognize what you need to work on and to strive to work on those things and to be cognizant of the feedback and to use that learning opportunity to let you really grow as a person. So I think that like the internship can allow you to self-reflect on what it is that you need to work on to be able to be where you want to be.
I love that. Marlene, do you have anything you want to piggyback off of that as far as any kind of advice you want to give?
Well, just really challenging yourself to kind of like interning somewhere that you wouldn't normally intern for, or that isn't your area of interest. So, or I think with this, I didn't have this in mind at all, but I'm so glad that I'm placed here. So it's a thing where they are getting me out of my comfort zone. They are like having me experience other things that I probably wouldn't have experienced if and something I'm already interested in, if that makes sense. And one thing I kind of would tell someone that's pursuing social work is experience is key. Like what I've learned with social work, I don't know, maybe it's because it's so generalized that they kind of value that wide range of work experience. So if any moment, any time you granted the opportunity to intern, volunteer, or work somewhere that's social work related, do it because they really value that as well as the degree. So yep.
Those are wonderful pieces of advice. I really appreciate it. I couldn't agree more. And at the beginning of this podcast, we mentioned that March is Social Work Month, which is a time to celebrate the profession. And this year's theme for 2021 is social workers are essential. So in your opinion, why are social workers essential?
So I think social workers are essential because they stand up every day for human rights, social justice to help strengthen our communities. And they can be the voice for people who aren't being heard. And they can tackle serious social issues in order to forge solutions that help people reach their full potential.
I love that. They're enacting change every day. Yeah, they're the kind of the advocates for social change. Marlene, do you have anything that you want to add on that?
I feel like with social work and how essential it is, people don't realize they've called on us more than often. We may not like introduce ourselves as social workers, but we're out there in the community. We're in the process of just how everything is functioned socially. We're there. And so I don't know, it's very important. Just know that with the social issues and the social functions, the daily functions, it's very important that social work is needed in that aspect, because we are the one putting the fuel to the fire, or not fuel to the fire, but putting out the fire in that sense.
Yeah, either putting out the fires or starting a fire that's needed in order to enact change.
That's good.
Absolutely.
Good. Wow. Like that. It's a snap of a finger. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think that's a wonderful place to sign off. But before I do, is there anything else you'd like to, talk about or address that we may not have covered in regards to social work? Anything else?
But if you want to go for a career where you can make a difference and make a change and have a variety of different options, then I definitely recommend to join and become a social worker.
Ditto.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danielle and Marlene. And thank you to the listener for listening to the Victim Service Center podcast. The VSC is a nonprofit organization that provides free confidential counseling services for victims of any kind of trauma in Central Florida. To learn more about our services, please visit victimservicecenter.org. And to everyone listening, healing is not linear and you are not alone. And thank you once again, Danielle and Marlene, for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.